me just get my slideshow here. You guys looking at my whole screen, awesome. You can see my, there it is, okay. All the things I'm doing. Where's mine? Oh. Is that it? That's it. Look. Okay. Teaching your child to self-advocate. I chose this picture. I have to take this off because I don't stand still. Okay, I'll stand still and hold it. Okay. I chose this picture because this is a child that appears to be drawing a line to create a barrier between himself and all the grown-ups. Okay, my son's done this, so it really resonated with me. Like, that was his snarky way of getting me to leave him alone. So, it's a really important image to keep in mind. Here's my disclosures. I am not a medical professional, although all of you can relate to the fact that eventually you feel like one sometimes. I'm not. And the information shared here is 100% based on my personal experiences and the experiences of my heterotaxy community. And so it is not like final word. Please just, if you see an idea you think will work for you, run with it. And you don't have to even give me credit, okay? Who I am, and this is the lens that I am looking through, that I am first and foremost a mother and fierce advocate for my children. Not only do I have Lauren, the little ranger heterotaxy girl, I also have a son who decided he needed to keep up with the Joneses, and so he decided he wanted very early onset fistulizing perianal Crohn's disease. So he got a bigger word than sissy, so that was cool. And so, yeah, so when Lauren's old enough to go off on her own, I get to have another kid to keep going to the hospital with, so yippee! All right, I am a caregiver of two complex children. I am a military spouse, and so I also come from that lens of having to advocate with my daughter in many different settings. And then in my pre-Lauren era, and all of you understand what that means, I was a national board certified music teacher. I ran marathons like an idiot. I ran too many. And actually this last one is, I run a little business as an escape from the busy things in life. And so, yeah, I make kids' clothes and sell them, so that's kind of fun. All right, so that's the lens I'm looking through, so you can get a perspective of what the heck I'm talking about. Okay, so why should children be able to advocate for themselves? Some of this is a no-brainer, but there's more to it than you think, okay? So obviously, we all know, there will come a time when we will not be there to advocate for them. Sometimes it's a lot sooner than you think. It could be, for example, when my daughter kept getting life flighted back to the hospital and we couldn't keep her out of the hospital. I had a panic attack and thought I was having a heart attack. So I was in the hospital across the street, and there was nobody but the nurses that knew my daughter to advocate for her. But even as a 3-month-old, there are funny little stories that proved that she was advocating for herself. This world that we live in the heterotaxy complex medical world, is built-in trauma. And a lot of people, when they think trauma, they think, you know, a hurricane, or going to war, or you know, you lost your house because it burned down in a fire, and these big one-time events. Our trauma is sometimes it is those one-time events, those codes, those emergency surgeries, those unexpected outcomes. But the likelihood of you burning your house down twice or 3 times and worried that you're going to burn your house down every day is a little different than the likelihood of your complex cardiac kid who's a walking miracle having another code, right? That sits with you and you carry it. So every day you are carrying that trauma with you. And so teaching your child how to carry that trauma with them, and they don't even know that that's not normal because they're born into it, is so, so, so important, especially as they get older. Also recognizing they are the experts in themselves. Like our parents are experts, but they are the experts, right? We cannot put ourselves in their shoes. You want to minimize unnecessary suffering. And all of us have done it where we have, the doctor's like, let's just get another stick, we didn't get enough blood. And you say, no, you are going to wait till tomorrow. You don't need any more blood today. I don't care if you need to know what this or that is. You can wait till tomorrow because, that would have been the 15th stick that day, right? So it's stuff like that. That's important. I hope they're okay. And then also a carryover of valuable skills. Like when they learn how to advocate for themselves in this setting, those skills carry over to navigating insurance, to their school, to a workplace, right? To having to learn to live with other people besides their family. And so it's that's kind of a hidden blessing in this. And then also teaching them to advocate for themselves is taking care of you, right? You don't have to carry all of the burden for them, for the most part, the rest of their life. Obviously, there are some kids that need your care throughout their life. However, there will still be a point where they can communicate things on their own in whatever form that is. All right, when can you start teaching your child to self-advocate? And again, if you know Lauren, you know it's never too early. Boss baby. Okay, so even at the earliest stages, babies are communicating from the moment, even before they're born. I don't know, it's like if you've been pregnant, some of you have, right? They communicate with you there. So you need to capitalize on that. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about age-appropriate self-advocacy, and we'll go through all those different levels. So here is some really important food for thought, and I had to learn this the hard way. You need to meet your kids at their emotional and intellectual age, and especially kids who have been through trauma, it is likely not going to be their actual age, okay? My daughter is probably 150 in SAS, right? She's probably 40 years old in intelligence, but she is probably about 5 years old in emotional intelligence, right? And we recognize that. And you need to meet them there, because if you don't, that's when you're going to, have all the meltdowns and so on and so forth. That's a whole other talk. I put on here no secrets. I know someone else, it was James. He was talking about being honest and direct. And I have always done that with Lauren, because it would feel like a lie to sugarcoat it, right? This is an forever thing, right? And so it doesn't make any sense if you want them to advocate for themselves if they don't even know the truth about themselves. So don't lie to your kids. Okay, no gaslighting. And we'll hear more about gaslighting later, but I will say, gaslighting, everybody thinks it's always this bad thing, but sometimes we gaslight and we don't realize it because all of our intentions are to make our kid feel better, right? We just want them to feel better. And we don't want them to hurt. But the reality is you need to tell yourself that truth. They need to learn how to work through that hurt, okay? And it can be something, one of my biggest peeves, and I still see it constantly, and Lauren is really good at telling them about this. When they go to do that IV, and the first thing the nurse says is, "Don't worry, I'm just looking for a vein." And Lauren has learned quickly that "I'm just looking" means they're gonna wait until she's not looking and try to stab her arm, right? You have instantly lost her trust because you lied, right? And then there are those things, and I can't think of a better example, but like, when your kid's running down the street and they trip and they skid their knee, and you say, "You're okay, you're okay," and they think that their leg fell off, right? In their mind, when they see blood pouring out of a part of their body where fluid is not supposed to come out to your child, that is scary. They do not have enough experience to say, "Oh, my little platelets are going to come and stop the bleeding, and then mom's going to clean it, and we're going to cover it, and eventually it'll go away." They say, "This hurts," and they don't know how long that hurt is going to be there, even with the most minor things. So if you say, if something hurts or something is hard, they don't have that sense of time and that understanding of the long-term process that it is something they're going to work through and get out the other side, right? Especially when you have these kids who often will go into the hospital feeling well and come out of the hospital feeling like duty, right? So again, get okay with the fact that they are going to have to work through pain as much as you want them to be okay. When you say you're okay, you're saying that for yourself. Okay, think about that. You're saying it for you, not them, when you tell them that they're going to be okay. Okay, ponder that for a while. Age-appropriate self-advocacy. Babies and toddlers. Okay, so here's where age-appropriate, right? So here's my son at the infusion center, and this was his second infusion. He had one 2 weeks before this, and this was about 3 months after he had surgery on his poor little hind end. And so he was not liking this place. And Child Life brought him a bubble gun, and he was shooting anybody that came near him, right? And what I loved about Seattle Children's Infusion Center Child Life, oh my gosh, they just went with it. They knew that that was what made him feel safe, okay? And he went up to the nurse and put that thing in her face and got bubbles in her eyes, and it was rude, right? But he had control of that moment. He was advocating for himself, all right? So he naturally knew what he had to do to keep himself safe. And at this age, right, those raw mechanisms in our brain that tell us danger and all of that, they are really raw and they're triggered much faster. It's like that's how you stay alive when you're born, right? And so he knew that this was a place where he could start to get hurt. And so he had his bubble gun, okay? It took about an hour and a half to get his vitals to get him to stand on the scale. But you know what? Now he's on his 35th infusion, and he comes home and said, they didn't even have to put the spidey web on my arm because he was able to manage having the IV without pulling it out and messing it up because he got that. I mean, that's huge, right? We don't have to sedate him to get an IV in anymore. So go with them. All right, they're going to tell you what they need. You need to demonstrate realistic actions. Show them what it looks like to advocate for yourself, okay? We want so hard to be strong and be like the tough guy, and you think that that's demonstrating, like, because that's compliance, right? But one thing I learned, it wasn't long ago, and I still practice it, is it's okay to tell your child when you need to advocate for yourself. Okay, so let me give you an example. My son punched me, probably in the spleen, wherever my spleen is. Who knows? I just assume. It could be somewhere else, but I've never looked. Okay, I thought it was going to feel that way forever, even though I knew better. And my daughter came to me and was asking me to play Catopoly. And I said, I'm feeling really overwhelmed with you asking me that question right now, right? And I was pushing my kids away, and I said, I need to be in a different room right now because I hurt, and I need you to be somewhere else. And there was that mama guilt, like I'm telling my kids to go away. Right? And I also needed to intervene with my son about what just happened, but I needed to advocate for myself first so I could be in a place to do that. Your kids need that too, and they need to see other people doing it too, okay? Especially at these young ages. They learn by seeing the world around them, by experiencing the world around them. You cannot reason these concepts with them, okay? Oh, I missed the first thing. Reinforce expressions and empathetic responses, right? I just like giving examples. My son says to me a lot, like he is a chocoholic and he wants chocolate at every meal. And so he will say, if you don't give me chocolate ice cream with chocolate syrup and chocolate chips for breakfast, I'm going to take away your phone. And there's other people in the family that would say, you don't talk to me that way, right? I'm going to tell you what you're going to eat for breakfast because I know better, right? But I know where my son's coming from. He's a kid who has built-in trauma, right? And I say to him, I can see how frustrated you are about this. I love chocolate. I want that too. Right? But we need to be healthy enough to go on with the day. How can we find a way to save that for later, right? So the way that you approach their feelings matters. And so reinforcing the fact that they're expressing how they feel, right? And that translates to the hospital too, okay? And then keep a journal of what works, because you're going to think you know how to get your kid through a situation, and then the next time they go through the situation, that's not what works for them anymore. And so you need to keep a journal to have like this running idea list. All right. Ages 4 to 10. Okay, I just threw numbers on there. I'm not going to lie on that. It's just this school age area. Okay, reinforce resilience, not perfection. Okay? Lauren has to get sedated and get her G-tube changed every 6 months. In fact, she's going to be doing it on Monday. I don't know why I scheduled it for Monday. I guess I'll die, right? And when we go there, we actually went to therapy to help her with her medical PTSD once we found out that she would have to go in and get sedated every 6 months, because that is very daunting for her. The fact that she could anticipate every 6 months she was going to go get sedated, that's hard. She has this fear that she won't wake back up. And so, we honor that. It is not pretty when we go, but she gets rewarded, and she is mean, and she tells it like it is. She's my boss baby. And so I still reward her at the end. And of course, us being parents, we want to teach them to be good communicators. We want to teach them to be kind. I don't care that she told that one person that he stinks and he's fat, right? Because that's what she needed to say when they were stabbing her in the arm, right? And it's like, that's his problem, right? He can go exercise and take a shower. So, but it's like other people I know would have said, don't say that, that's not nice. But you know what? If you went to war and you're worried about getting shot, are you going to care what people are saying around you? It doesn't make sense. They are in fight or flight in these situations, right? So there is no value in correcting that kind of behavior in those moments where they can't reason, okay? So celebrate the fact they got through it, because sometimes they don't think they can. You know they can, right? And so no matter how ugly it looks, no matter how much of an adventure it is, it's a celebration at the end. Introduce medical terminology, and I'm going to show you a video in a bit. You'll get it, you'll see why. But a 4-year-old can learn how to say Nissen funduplication and explain what it is. If it pertains to them, it's just a word, right? We want to dumb things down a little bit. The only word that Lauren used that was really funny and still sometimes uses it, that's not the actual medical term, is the gel they use for echoes. It's the oopie goopies. Okay? Everything else is said fairly correctly, because when you get that terminology, when it becomes part of her normal language, it is much easier to advocate because she's not trying to find the right words to say what she needs to say. Introduce medical self-care skills as appropriate. Lauren gives herself her own med. She hooks up her own G-tube extension, gives herself her meds. She's in charge of cleaning it and keeping it clean. It's funny, the other night, Brooklyn's like, "You're giving yourself meds?" And she's like, "Yeah, I always do that." Right? It was a cute little conversation they had. Anywhere that you can give them that independence as young as possible, do it. She has done it where she hasn't unlocked it, and that $7,000 a month med just went, flying across the kitchen floor, and you're just like, oh my God, right? But guess what? She's learned that she needs to remember to unlock it next time. So there's still value in that, right? Okay. Pretend play. Kids need to play. All right. I'm going to tell you about, there was a short time before COVID that Lauren was in play therapy, and they gave her colorful tape, and she decided to make like a city pathway thing on the floor, and then she was just putting things in various places on the path, and then she invited us all to walk along the tape. And her dialogue while we were doing that really spoke volumes. She's like, "Oh no, we have to go this way. There's somebody that needs to go to the hospital." And she picked up this toy helicopter. "We're gonna bring her in the helicopter. Oh no, the helicopter crashed. We can't use the helicopter. Who else is gonna get her to the hospital?" And then it was the ambulance. The ambulance had to rough it on non-road terrain because all the pathways were blocked. And then she said, "Oh no, the ambulance got there, but how are we going to get to the hospital now because all the roads are blocked? What are we going to do?" And it was this constant, she kept putting in roadblocks, for lack of a better word, and that told us what her fears were in the hospital, because she's had that where she thought she was okay, and then something else terrible happened. And she had this kind of looming feeling that there's always going to be something, like, don't tell me I'm okay because I know it's going to get bad again, right? And that's because she was 5. And then we were able to talk to her about that. So the power of play, if you're really paying attention and being engaged, can help you help them advocate for themselves, okay? Normalize diversity among peers, right? Some people talk to their kids don't talk about that when we go to the zoo, right? Let them just talk about it. Again, in James's talk earlier, is talking about the oxygen, and you just tell the kids what it was about. And that was fine, right? We were at the zoo in San Antonio and we were on a picnic table, and there were fire ants underneath, and we didn't know it, and all the kids started feeling bites on their legs, and we're freaking out, and all the kids got up on the picnic table and stripped their clothes off, and we dumped water on them to get the fire ants out. No joke. And Lauren then revealed her scars. And the kids are like, "What's that?" And of course she's all dramatic. "Well, when I was a baby, I had to get my chest cut open. But it's okay, I'm better now. This scar says that I survived." And it was great. But look, she advocated for herself, and they accepted her. But it was necessary. Now I'm going to fast forward to now. She's in public school for the first time ever in her life, and she did not get a chance to tell her class what her deal was. And by day one, they were making fun of her because she couldn't make it up the stairs every time. And then right before she left for this conference, the kids are like, where are you going to be gone for a week? And she explained it. And they're like, oh, that's why you couldn't go up the stairs. Well, that makes sense, right? But she can't lift up her shirt in 6th grade. So, but normalize that. Talk about it. It's okay to talk about it at the store. It's okay to talk about it in places outside the hospital. Encourage the self-expression, naming emotions, just like when they're toddlers. Okay, and then this is my personal opinion. Don't try to teach them these skills when they're in the hospital. Okay, play outside the hospital. They cannot reason while they're there. They cannot say, oh, I learned from that. All they're going to remember is the stress. Play doctor, let them cook with you and pretend that the hot dog is a cut that they have to stitch and let them stab it, right? Play when it is not a scary place for them. So this is where you start putting them in the driver's seat. Oh, no, okay. I'll share these slides with you. Okay. When they are old enough for you to feel safely to let them do stuff, this is where you can go to appointments and let them start the conversation. And then you chime in as needed, okay? They can do this at this preteen age. They can probably do it younger for the most part, but they can really do it. And you make it the routine. We're going to an appointment. What do you want to say to them, okay? This early. Don't wait until they're in high school and they have to legally go to appointments by themselves. Okay, do it when you're there and you can guide them through it. And then the more you do it, the more they will take over and you're just sitting there. I like to call myself the emotional support human. And so, yeah, I'll send you the slides and you can kind of read those better. Okay, high schoolers and young adults, this is when you start giving them things to do as if they were daily routines and chores, right? Make them make the phone call to get their meds refilled. If they can drive, they're going to find any opportunity they can to drive that car, right? Send them to the pharmacy to pick up their meds, right? Let them experience what that's like. There's nothing worse than sending your kid out into the world and they're calling you every day because of they don't know what to do with this bill that they got in the mail, right? Expose it to them little by little, just like you would any other life skill. I don't have any high schoolers yet, so I don't want to speak too much more on that. But that's pretty much the takeaway, is let them do it. And it's so hard after you have taken those reins for so many years. All right. Okay. It's okay to ask for help. Self-advocacy doesn't mean 100% independence. It means knowing what you need, okay? It's okay to express when well-meaning people are not helpful. That's also self-advocacy, right? If Lauren says, Mom, I can do it. She's advocating. She's saying, I want to be independent, and you walk away, and then she screws it up, and you go help her, and it's okay, right? But then she's learned from it, and then you go again. So it's that whole mindset of, it's okay to say, it's okay for them to say that they don't need help. And then it's okay to make decisions to prioritize your mental well-being. That is, I think it's really important to give this example that my daughter, everybody wanted to send her to some other city for an intensive feeding program to get her off that G-tube, because most people were like, the goal is to get rid of that thing. Well, she got her G-tube at 8 weeks old. She doesn't know what it's like to not have a G-tube, and it's terrifying for her. And so she would sabotage her feeding plans and not eat enough. There was a time we weaned her off of it, and she missed it, okay? And so we decided we're going to let her decide when she wants to get rid of it. Yeah, it's not fun. It's great when she's sick. I'm so blessed. I wished my son had a G-tube when he was sick, right? So you have to make those decisions, even though they say, well, she needs this, but she needs to get off of it because there's all these long-term. But you need to know what works for you. Okay, there is a long video on here. What do we want to do? I so badly want to show some of it. Okay, So this is Lauren at 5 on Heterotaxy Awareness Day. I would let her be herself in the hospital, and we talked a lot about what to say to explain to people what's wrong with you and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so this is an example of Lauren's 5-year-old version of self-advocacy. Okay, if it plays, please, where are you? Oh, no, oh, no. Oh, there it is. Oh, phew. And turn up. Can you hear it?
Oh. Inside, I have a missing organ, which is my spleen, and
Okay.
my heart grew wonky. And what happens is, I have a heterotaxy girl, and that's why. But normal people have spleens, but not especially fragile people has a missing organ, like your spleens or their liver.
Yeah, but so you're missing your spleen. Does that make it hard to fight some bacteria?
Yeah, but what's the easy bacteria that could fight with our spleen is dragon moths.
Dragon moths.
Dragon moths has only three germs of it, and that's easy peasy. It's just 3 white blood cells to take care of any of them, then voila, they're disappeared.
But what if you get like strep throat? Is that really hard for you?
Yeah, I have to get surgery, but
No, probably not surgery, but would you be in the hospital with lots of pokies? Yeah. So how many surgeries did you have on your heart?
I have 3, but
Are you going to have any more?
I am soon.
Yeah.
And it was, I had 9 abdominal surgeries, which was my tummy. What happened?
Well,
I don't know
9
what-
procedures.
9 procedures.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. Did you hear how I kind of helped her to understand? She did not have 9 surgeries on her belly. That would be one of those things that you don't want to tell them you've had 9 surgeries if you haven't, right? But so I just I helped her with the right word. And she was fine with that. And then she said it correctly from then on, right? So that's kind of an example of kind of how to guide them and let them go. Okay. If you want to talk to me more about it later, I'm available. But that's all, folks.